In this recording, I'll show you how I make the IPA consonant symbols. Again, notice the size of each symbol compared to the other symbols and to the line, and also notice where the symbols touch one another and which ones drop below the line. I'll give you a few tips on the more difficult ones. Many of them are ones that you're used to writing, but you just need to be extra careful to make them so that they can't be confused with another symbol. We'll start with the stops. The first one is P, as in pig. Pig. Just make the P, the vertical part of the P, long enough so that it's clearly has a long tail on it. Sometimes some people like to make these little mini tails on their P's, and it makes it hard to really hard to distinguish it from an A or an O. So don't do that. The next sound is the B sound, like in big. Big. Again, just try to make it tall enough, as tall as the entire line in this case, rather than making a very short tail that makes it look like an A sound. The next sound is the T sound, like in toy, toy. Again, the main issue people have with this one is not making it short enough or not putting a tail on the bottom. You don't want it to look like a plus sign. So don't do this or this. Make sure that it's tall and it has a tail on the bottom. The next sound is the D sound, like in dog, dog. Again, it needs to be tall so that it doesn't resemble an A. So, dog. The D should not look like an A like this. Next is the K sound, like in cat, cat. Cat. So again, make sure that the symbol is tall enough, not like this. This one's okay. Next is the G sound, like in good. The symbol needs to sit, the circular part needs to sit on the line, and the tail clearly comes below the line. So, and don't make the tail super curly Q or anything like that, but it does need to have a hook on it. So it shouldn't look like this or this or this, because that kind of looks like a Q. Next are the nasal sounds. The first one is like in mom. The main mistake with this one is that sometimes people make a small capital M instead of a regular printed M. And this is actually the same as an upside down W, which is a symbol in IPA. So we don't want to make that symbol. And it should have a vertical part on it, so it shouldn't really look like that either. And it shouldn't take up the whole line like that either. Next is the N sound, like in no. No. The same with the N. It should have a vertical part on it, so it shouldn't just look like this. And it shouldn't be pointy or take up the whole line like this. And usually there's not too many other troubles with this sound. The next sound is the ng sound, the last sound in the word ring. This looks like an N, but it has a tail on it, like a G sound. So it shouldn't look like this, and it needs to clearly have the G part and not just look like N. Ring. The next sound is the F sound, like in fun. And again, it should be tall, and it shouldn't look like a cross. So it needs to have that hook on it. Fun. So it shouldn't look like this, or even this, which I sometimes do in my regular handwriting. The next sound is V, like in vine. Vine. The trick with the V sound is that the V and the R sounds can get very easily confused if you don't make them clearly. So I don't really want to see your V's looking like that because they get confusable with the R's. So make the V clearly as a V, and that should be okay. And it shouldn't be an uppercase V. Next is the th sound, like in the word thick and the word think. So thick, transcribed like this. This one does cause people trouble sometimes. So it looks like a theta, but it doesn't have a wavy line through it. So you kind of make a oval, not a complete circle, but an oval, almost the height of the line. It could be the height of the line. It shouldn't be super short. And then you put a straight line through it. So it should not look like this, and the line shouldn't cross outside of the circle. And it shouldn't be a short little circle either. It shouldn't look like an O. It should look more like an oval with a straight line through it. That's not a real good example either. Okay, it should look like an oval with a line through it. Th. Next is the voiced TH sound, the sound, like in though. Though. Oh. Like that. Though. This one also gives people trouble hearing it and sometimes writing it. It looks like a D that's starting to fall over, but you don't want it to fall over too far. It starts looking like the schwa sound, like with a cross through it then. And so you don't want it to be too curly like that, because it can look like the schwa sound. But you don't want it to be too straight up and down either. It's not that, and it's certainly not this. So this is not right and this is not right. So, and it doesn't really have a straight part on it, so it's not a D like that, just falling over. You make a circle, and then you bring the line over about 45 degrees to the left, and that makes your the sound. And of course it should be sitting on the line.